In 1996, Bill Gates said, "Content is king." And boy, was he right. 3 decades later, it still occupies the throne. For lawyers, law firms, and companies serving the legal industry, content marketing and thought leadership marketing are a must if they want to build their books of business or increase their revenues. Hi, I'm Wayne Pollock. I'm a former AM Law 50 senior associate who discovered the world of content marketing and thought leadership marketing and hasn't looked back. In each episode of this podcast, I interview lawyers and legal industry in-house marketers who are doing big things with their content marketing and thought leadership marketing. This is Legally Contented. Welcome to episode number 8 of Legally Contented. I'm your host, Wayne Pollock. One of the great things about content is that it is the great equalizer. You may not have money to buy ads or on social media or on billboards, but if you produce compelling content and you find ways to get that out into the world, you can build a large organic following. My guest on this episode, Mitch Jackson, did just that. He's a personal injury attorney in Orange County, California. While he runs a small law firm, he has leveraged the internet and social media to become a thought leader in the legal space regarding marketing, social media marketing, trial practice, and technology. Now, ironically, even though he is an incredible content marketer, my conversation with Mitch in this episode only scratches the surface when it comes to content marketing. That's because we spend the majority of our discussion talking about Web 3.0, specifically the Metaverse and what it means for lawyers, law firms, and the practice of law. Sure, you're going to hear some tips from Mitch about building your personal brand and leveraging social media to build that brand and, of course, your practice. But the key takeaway from this conversation is that Web 3.0 and the Metaverse are rife with opportunities for lawyers to engage with clients, referral sources, and with other individuals in new and exciting ways that can simultaneously help you develop tighter relationships with those individuals and, in these early days of Web 3.0 and the Metaverse, position yourself as a forward thinker who is on the cutting edge of technology. Here's my conversation with Mitch. Mitch Jackson, welcome to Legally Contented. Please introduce yourself and give us an idea of how you came to be where you are today.
Wayne, it's good to see you again. It's been way too long, my friend. I think the last time we chatted was at a baseball game in your hometown. So I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. Grew up on a ranch where people would come out and play cowboy and cowgirl and ride horses and shovel horse manure. And I watched my dad and mom build a business that they ended up selling after about 30 years. And I think appropriately so, Wayne, it was converted from a ranch, a dude ranch, into an alcohol and drug rehab facility that's still there today. So that made a lot of sense. First one in my family to go to college and certainly to go to law school. And for the last 35 years, practicing law here in Southern California and loving every minute of it. Before we went live, I mentioned to you, I just came off the water with a nice long paddleboard with my 22-year-old son who just graduated from the University of Southern California, Marshall School of Business. We did a paddle around the island this morning, got back, hot cup of coffee, and I'm here with you. That's my life story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, it's not a conversation with Mitch Jackson unless he reminds you how wonderful it is to live in Southern California and how envious you must be because you are not joining him for paddleboarding or running along the beach with a drone behind you recording it for social media. So, it's usual.
You got to embrace the opportunities, right?
And I think also you're being a little bit modest. You mentioned the story of your family's ranch. I think you had a couple famous people you bumped into when you were a kid, didn't you?
Very young, we had people like Walt Disney, John Wayne, Rock Hudson, Morley Safer from 60 Minutes, who I beat 6-0, 6-0 on the tennis court back in the day. It was interesting, Wayne, to just meet people who you see in the movies, who you watch on television. And then when you meet them in real life, you realize they're just like you and I. And one of my takeaways from that experience, especially watching my mom and dad interact with them, is my mom and dad never talked to them about their business or their movies or what they did for a living. My mom and dad would steer the conversation over to family and hobbies and interest. And they built relationships with guests who would come back year after year after year. And their families and their kids would grow up with my sister and I. And literally for the first 20 years of my life, that was what I experienced on a daily basis. And I took away from that, Wayne, when building my own firm from scratch, it's all about the relationships. And one of the reasons that I'm excited to be on today's podcast, other than seeing you again, is to talk about how we can use content marketing and especially Web3 and the metaverse to build new and better relationships that I think all lawyers can utilize to build their firms, to increase the number of referrals coming their way, and at the end of the year, increase bottom line net profits. So it was fun taking what I learned in the guest ranch industry before the internet, before social media, before Web3, before the metaverse, and then applying all of these principles in today's world, because I honestly believe they've never been more important. Human skills, it's never been more important today as digital develops, as the need to understand some of the things that you and I are going to be talking about. When it's all said and done, it still comes back to, and you already know this, but it still comes back to your ability to communicate, our ability to persuade, our ability to build rapport with our audience, our ability to add value and create an exemplary customer experience. I mean, that's what it's all about. But I got to thank my mom and dad for raising me in a way where I got to watch this in real time. And it's not hard to do. It's just that a lot of people don't know where to start when it comes to doing these things.
Well, and you make a real interesting point about the people as you find them, as you meet them at your parents' ranch. When you're a lawyer, whether you're dealing with a normal, quote unquote, normal person who got into a fender bender or a celebrity who's dealing with a high profile divorce, your clients are still human beings. And it doesn't matter where they're at in life. When they come to you, whether you're a solo personal injury lawyer or you are a big time partner at a huge law firm, they come to you for legal assistance and help and guidance, but they also come to you, I think, for the human touch. They want to know that they're talking to a human being and not just a robot who is on law review and who will spit out the correct citations for the law and the arguments they're making in their case, but they're not going to, shoot the shit or have conversations that actually happen between human beings. So that's a great lesson.
It's about asking the client, how can I help you? What can I do for you? What do you need me to do? What do you need my legal team to do? If I could snap my fingers and you get up in the morning and everything's just the way you want it to, tell me what that looks like. And then we stop talking and we start listening. And then we build upon the responses to those types of questions with how we engage with the clients, with how we interact with them during the handling of a case, and frankly, how we can help structure what that final outcome, that desired outcome that the client wants, isn't always initially what they tell us during that first interaction, right? During the process, we learn new facts, new damages are discovered, and so that part of the story changes over time. But as you get to know people, you can comfortably have a conversation with the client and work together to get that mutually desired final outcome. And when you do that, whether you're doing it in real life, person to person, whether you're doing that in a Zoom arbitration, mediation, or trial, whether or not you're doing that in a mediation that we're now handling in the metaverse, the final outcome is gold. You've built a relationship, you've built trust, and you've built a long-term referral source. So absolutely.
So let's talk about technology and communications. One of the reasons why I am such a big fan of yours is because you, I think, still to this day are breaking the mold for what people expect out of lawyers. You are a personal injury attorney out of Southern California. You're not at a huge firm with a ton of resources, and yet you embraced the internet when it first was prolific across the consumer consumer world. You embraced social media, and now you're all in on Web 3.0, and I can't wait to get into Web 3.0 in a little bit later in this conversation. But I'm curious, walk me through your approach as a young lawyer. The internet becomes this newfangled technology that is open to people hopping on and connecting with other people. Talk to me about how you saw that potential and how you saw potential for social media with Web 2.0, and when you started to get involved in those technologies, and when you started to see that even for a solo practitioner or a small law firm, it could pay big dividends in terms of marketing and business development.
Game-changing dividends. It can change your life. So starting my practice out of the back of my car back in 1986 here in Southern California. Southern California has one of the largest bar associations, Orange County Bar, Los Angeles County Bar, San Diego Bar, San Francisco Bar Associations. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of really good lawyers. These are the lawyers that you read about every day in the paper with huge verdicts, new case law, whatever it might be. So starting off, what I found is I had a couple of cases. I'd drive down to Main Beach, down Laguna Beach. I played basketball all day. The guys on the court were my first couple of clients in criminal defense cases. And I started from scratch. I started networking with the lawyers I was clerking with and taking the cases that they didn't want me to take, that they didn't want to take, that I was willing to take. And I did that for the first couple of years. And I realized, Wayne, that even doing all of that and hustling my butt off bar association meetings and doing everything else in between, it was really, really tough to stand out in an already well-saturated, legal pool here in Orange County. As the internet rolled around, I realized that no other lawyers were, that I knew of back then were involved or had a website or even knew what the internet was, even had heard the term. And because I've always been a tech geek, I remember programming some sites and back in around 95 or 96, 1995, 1996, putting up our first website. And within 8 months, we had a $1 million case come through that website. And we used our URL in our Yellow Page ads back then. We had started to do some advertising. But what I noticed, Wayne, is instead of me being one-on-one with someone, I was 1 to 100 or maybe 1 to 200 back then in what we now think of as blog posts or bulletin boards. And I quickly figured out that I could share a post about something and it would be amplified, not just locally, but nationally and sometimes even globally. And I've never been accused of being the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I figured out that there was something to this internet thing. And so being early in the internet allowed me to build my brand, allowed me to take that small brand into social media back around 2007, 2008. And then over the last, 15 or 20 years, build that out, allowed me to stand out above all the noise. I think right now with Web3, and I know we're going to get to it, what I'm seeing is the same opportunities that existed for lawyers back when the internet first rolled out. When the first web browsers started to roll out, those same opportunities 100x are here today for lawyers, for law firms, for legal support services that embrace these new technologies. They're here right now. And I think the smart legal professionals that do what I did with the internet back in the late 80s and early 90s, if they do the same thing this year and next year, even next year's early in Web3 and the Metaverse platforms and everything we're going to be talking about, I think they're going to be positioning themselves for massive success because they're going to be able to get their brand heard. Unlike everyone else, are going to be able to service more clients and build more relationships around the world. And they're also going to be creating a new image with their clients and referral sources of a law firm or a third-party legal services company who understands this new technology, that's not afraid to dip their toe in the sand in this particular sandbox, who's not afraid to be that firm that's willing to take a smaller amount of risk to add additional value to the clients, to bring down the case costs because you're embracing smart contracts and blockchain technology and Web3 technology, which you can pass along to your clients. You can do things simpler and faster and more effectively. And so for all of those reasons, that's what I saw the internet being, Wayne, back in, for me, the mid to late 90s. It allowed us to do all of the above without having to spend tens of thousands of dollars a month in advertising. And I see, fast forward to today, that same opportunity exists for anyone that's willing to give it a try and go about it the right way, except it's 100x what it was back in the earlier mid 90s.
I want to know about your social media presence, and I'm curious, did you have any hangups? You are out there. You are out there in terms of social media. You are not afraid to show up sweaty, running on a beach with a drone in tow. Did you have concerns at any point that you were showing too much of the personal side of Mitch Jackson, and that perhaps a would-be client or referral source might find a Twitter post or a Facebook post and go, this guy doesn't seem professional. I'm seeing too much of his personal life.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that concern was the first 7 or 8 years of my practice. So this is before the internet. I tried to blend in by imitating what I thought the best lawyers in town were doing, how they dressed, how they tried their case, how their offices looked, what bar association meetings they went to, what type of cars did they drive. I looked at what they were doing, and my mindset back then was if I mirrored what they were doing, if I spoke like they spoke, if I gave the same opening statements they gave, if I promoted myself through yellow page ads and local bar association magazine ads, looking for referrals, that success would follow. And what I realized is, yes, all of that does work, but it takes time, money, and energy. And what I did notice is that it worked very slowly. And I wasn't comfortable with the pace of how my brand was being built, even though I started getting some good results in court. When the internet rolled out, well, before the internet rolled out, Wayne, what I noticed is I also rode and raced motocross back then in Southern California. I rode and raced for 38 years. And I actually was racing the 40 and over vet series up until about 7 years ago. But I had a couple of friends who I met down at the courthouse who also were ex-racers. And so we got together and we started riding on Wednesdays together down to local tracks. Within a couple of months, we had 8 or 10 of us riding every Wednesday morning. 1 or 2 judges, believe it or not, were joining us on Wednesdays when they could. They'd start their courtrooms late. And all of a sudden, I noticed my brand building. I noticed the number of referrals increasing. It's because I realized I was doing something different. Like we've got a group of lawyers riding and racing motocross who all get each other. We're all passionate about this hobby, this interest. And now we're all referring cases to each other. We're having dinner. We're watching the games together down at the local watering hole. And it clicked for me. I'm like, wait a minute, why should I try to blend in with everyone else in Orange County when I've got this great group of lawyers that we enjoy riding and racing together? We're building our businesses together. And guess what? Other lawyers on the outside wanted to be in our group. They wanted to learn how to ride. They wanted to come down to the track with us. And so taking that mindset onto social media, what I quickly learned is that by being you, by sharing your hobbies, your interests, your passions on the digital platforms, through photos, through videos, like you've described earlier, what I realized is it works, and it works really well. Once I gave myself permission to be myself, I started connecting with other people who had similar interests. I started connecting with other families who also had kids in sports. I started connecting with other young lawyers that were trying to build their practice, who enjoyed running or, back in the day, flying gliders or flying drones, whatever it might be. And so what I noticed, Wayne, was by being real, it allowed me to build my brand and substantially increase the number of referrals, number of business opportunities, whether it's speaking, traveling, investing, whatever it might be. It actually opened up many, many doors. Now, having said that, you can't be someone to everyone. And so I'm sure there are people out there where when they see my social posts, they say to themselves or their company executives, that's not the lawyer for our company. But you know what? That's fine. There's plenty of business out there. And I'd rather represent and engage with people on a daily basis as clients who actually enjoy doing the same things that I'm doing, who actually have the same mindset, whether it's religion, money, politics, social media, comedy, what movies we like, whatever it might be, Wayne. I want to be around people who share a similar mindset that I do when it comes to what we feel is the right way to go through life. So once I gave myself permission to just be real with respect to the content I'm sharing, and I'm talking about strategically transparent. Okay, you gave some examples of, running and sweating and all this other stuff. That's all great, but I'm shooting video from a beautiful beach or walking out of a conference room. I'm not standing in front of a kitchen sink with a stack of dirty dishes behind me in my running gear doing a video, right? I'm strategically transparent about what I'm doing. So I'm always thinking about what's in my background, what's my call to action, which oftentimes is simply, hey, let's stay connected on social media. Nobody likes to be sold on social media. I don't care what any marketing experts tell you. None of us like to be, interrupted by commercials. We don't like sales on social. And so what started working, Wayne, was when I did these things, the doors started to open. The fun part was I started to meet other people I would have never met before all around the world who shared similar common interest. And by the way, that might be starting up companies. That might be venture capitalists who enjoy investing in XYZ industries. Okay. And because of these relationships, it allowed me to jump on even before Zoom, on different live videos, jump on the phone or share text or email messages with each other, and just start to build relationships. And so, yeah, it was a little awkward for those first 7 or 8 years, but I wasn't willing to spend the next 20 or 30 like the first 7 or 8. And so I purposefully pivoted, gave myself permission to be real. And it's one of the best decisions I ever made, but it wasn't an easy decision. It took effort. It took time. And I know that's a long answer to a short question, but it's a super important question and answer, because I want more of our friends, our mutual friends, Wayne, who you and I both know, I want them to just chill out and be themselves and have fun, because we only go through life once. And, add value on social, share what you're doing. You're going to connect with more people. You're going to enjoy your days more. And after 35 years of trying cases and practicing law, and most of my cases are catastrophic injury and wrongful death cases, so it's pretty substantial stuff. I'm more excited today, Wayne, rolling out of bed in the morning to practice law than I've ever been in my life. And that tells me I'm doing something right. Most lawyers don't feel that way after 10 years of practice, much less 35 years of practice. So, that's my theme. That's my approach to life and law. And I do it again in a heartbeat.
Well, I will be very curious to see, as the new generation of lawyers who are becoming partners and managers at their law firms, what they view new business development and marketing through social media. Because when I was at my large law firm for 6.5 years, it was 2010 through 2016. The senior partners and the rainmakers didn't get business through LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook. They got business by going to golf courses, going to sporting events, going to conferences. Sure. Social media was not something that they were comfortable with. Yet this new generation of law firm leadership, whether again it's a 3-person personal injury firm or a 500-person corporate law firm, there's going to be a lot more comfort with social media. So I'll be very interested to see, when you have partners who are very comfortable on social media, very comfortable with their kids on social media, how that impacts the marketing culture at a firm, when the big boys and girls who bring in business are totally okay shooting a live video with their kid after getting out of the school, or shooting a live video from the steps of the courthouse. It's really exciting to see how it's going to change marketing, because you have a generation who's familiar with social media, comfortable with it, and most importantly, knows the power of it and what it could do for their marketing and their brand building.
Well, let's get real for a second. If you're not already doing this, and you haven't been for the last 8 to 10 years, it may be too late. And I want to be real with everybody. And the reason I say that is what you just mentioned with golfing, with doing things in real life, that's super important. That's still critically important. What I'm talking about doesn't push all of that aside. What it does is, this is the icing on the cake. If you and I are out for a round of golf and we're with a couple other people and we're having fun out there, we're in the golf cart shooting a couple of selfies. We're maybe doing a 30-second live. This is how we're preparing for meeting with expert witnesses next week. One of them's right here in the golf cart with us, and it's going to help us steal this case, whatever it might be. And afterwards, you can share those photos and those videos with your team. You can have them clean them up and share those in a LinkedIn post, share those on Facebook or Twitter. But this is something that I think successful firms and lawyers have been doing already for the last 8 to 10 years on social media. It's not new anymore. And when you're new at something, that's how you stand out. There are already plenty of firms doing what we just talked about. I think those same firms, Wayne, walking away from this podcast episode, taking what you just shared and then implementing it in a Web3 world. I think those are the firms that are going to be standing out by complementing traditional offline relationship building activities, which I still absolutely love to do. Instead of the golf course, I'm down at the motocross track. Instead of the evening bar association meetings, I'm on a live video with 300 experts from around the world talking about, how to better testify under cross or direct examination from the witness stand. There are just other ways you can complement these traditional in real life activities using the digital platforms. I think the smart firms moving forward are going to do all of the above, while also giving their young associates permission to build out their digital brands and the digital brands of the law firms while they're going about doing that. And I think when you do that, oh man, that's when the magic kicks in.
Let's go there. Let's start talking about Web3 because I'm excited about the potential for law firms, really society generally, but law firms specifically and lawyers who, to your point, may have been a little bit slow on the uptake on social media based on their age, where they were in their career, whatever. But it's a fresh slate with Web 3.0. When we talk about Web 3, what are we talking about? What do you mean when you say Web 3.0?
Well, Web 1 was sharing content on a static web page. Web 2 had to do with user-generated content, everything that we've been talking about, videos, back and forth conversations, things like that. Web 3 is a concept that's based upon a new iteration of the internet that incorporates concepts of decentralization, blockchains, DAOs, DeFi, and token-based economics. It's a decentralized servers spread all over the world in a perfect Web3 environment, although we're still seeing centralized Web3 activities, big companies that are hosting Web3 content. And it's basically raising the bar and allowing all of us to do the things that you and I just discussed in a decentralized way, focusing on building community, while at the same time, for example, meeting clients in virtual spaces, whether it's our office, conference room, whether it's a big presentation. So, I've spoken a couple of times at Tony Robbins' Business Mastery. There's like 3,000 people in the room. It's huge. It's amazing. It's also very expensive for Robbins industry to put these events on, even though I think they're huge money makers. Well, for lawyers to do that, most of us don't have the time, the energy, or even the resources to put on that type of event. But literally in 10 or 15 minutes in the right social media, virtual space or Web3 space, you can create a conference facility just like that, with vendor booths, with people coming in and joining you on stage, with spatial audio. So the conversations happening in the audience aren't affecting everyone else that's attending and or speakers from the stage. Real-time videos, audios, photographs floating behind you, just like at a regular presentation. Everything that you want to do in real life, you can do in these virtual spaces now. And it's easy. It's almost as easy as sending somebody a Zoom link with a password where the client or clients or the attendees can join you in these spaces, whether it's a one-on-one, just you and I, Wayne, or a 1 to 15 presentation in a conference room, or a 1 to 500 presentation in a large conference facility. It's literally just sending out a link, giving people access, and then learning how to communicate in that Web3 virtual experience environment. It's fast, it's inexpensive, and there are three reasons, Wayne, real quick, and I'll wrap this portion of my answer up with you. Three reasons why it's so important and why this is happening right now. Number one, the consumers are okay with this. Because of COVID, they're comfortable with remote interactions with lawyers and with third-party service providers. So the mindset of the consumer is, hey, Zooms work, these types of spaces, I get it. I don't have to travel in bumper to bumper traffic. I can practice social distancing and still have an amazing experience. Number two, we have high-speed internet and 5G with our remote devices, which allows us to really enjoy all the bells and whistles of Web3 environments. And then number three, ease of use. This is not something that's hard to do anymore. There are three platforms that I'm just going to give you the names of them. I have no financial interest in these platforms, but this is where I think the lawyers need to be, because they're professional platforms. Conference rooms are gorgeous. It gives that right first impression. Clients can access these 3 platforms using their phone, their tablets, their laptops, their desktops, or their headsets. And I recommend the Oculus Quest 2 as of this particular time and date. It's inexpensive. It integrates and plays well with all of these platforms. It's easy to use. And by using a headset, Wayne, it's just as if you and I are standing next to each other. It's really that good. It's amazing. But the 3 platforms we're recommending right now are spatial.io. That's spatial.io, engagevr.io, and glue.work. Those 3 platforms, any lawyer can turnkey an office, a conference room, and create the type of experience I've just shared with you with just a couple of clicks for either free or a very small monthly amount, and be an early adopter of Web3 technology.
We're going to add to the show notes the walkthrough video you have where you blow through a whole bunch of different backgrounds. And
nice,
right, because you might be a hater or maybe a skeptic, and then you see this video and you look at these beautifully rendered backgrounds or environments that range from what looks like a university or college campus classroom to a boardroom to looked like a very cool futuristic outdoor amphitheater. It is very, very cool what's happening this early on in terms of these environments. And I think people need to see that and visualize it to get an appreciation for what the technology looks like today and just how much has been achieved with technology today, and still how much will likely be achieved tomorrow and next year. I'm curious. I'm seeing a lot of law firms, or I should say, I'm seeing some law firms open up offices in Decentraland. Where do you put Decentraland in relation to Spatial.io, Glue, and some of the other environments that you've mentioned?
It's not even on my radar. I mean, I still don't understand why everyone's so excited about being in a space that doesn't look very professional. It's here's my approach to the metaverse. And look, one of the advantages, I spoke at CEX last week in Phoenix, or 2 weeks ago in Phoenix. It was the first huge Web3 conference, and I was there, to share some legal tips. And one of the advantages of being a lawyer that's representing, early users, companies that are playing in the Web3 space, is I get a feel for where everyone's interest is, what the trends are, because everything you see online, it's run by legal counsel before anybody ever posts something about it on social media, whether they're rolling out a new platform or a new concept or a new approach. And one of the things I'm noticing is that what's working right now in Web3 is me inviting you or your community into a presentation. Okay. So I'm purposefully saying, listen, we can meet on the phone. We can jump on a Zoom. We can, do Q&A through, one of our apps, or if you'd like, we can jump into our virtual conference room and finish up this conversation. So by taking the lead, we can lead people into the space we want them to be in. What I've noticed with a lot of the big brands that you see, marketing themselves as being early users of Decentraland and a few other platforms, is when you go into those platforms, it's like a ghost town. It's not like people are walking around looking for an XYZ business that they can knock on the digital door and walk into. And I'm talking some of the biggest companies in the world. When you go to their spot on Decentraland, there's nobody there. And so the way the metaverse and Web3 works right now is to bring an existing or prospective client into your space and start the conversation that way. It's not as if they're just walking around looking for a law firm in Decentraland. Yes, that is an option, but I just don't think it's an option right now. People need to understand there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of different metaverses out there. People need to understand that when I'm talking about, and everything we've talked about, Wayne, metaverses, I'm not even thinking Meta or Facebook, to be really honest with you. Okay, obviously they're a player and that's a thing, but there's so many options and opportunities out there, different metaverses for different reasons, different metaverses for to complement the personality of, for example, a lawyer or a law firm. And so I want to make sure when people come into my metaverses that we're involved with, that it's a professional experience. I don't look like a Lego character. There aren't little kids running around kicking our ankles and interrupting our conversations. And the platforms that I just shared with you are the platforms right now that allow you to do exactly what lawyers need to do to benefit from these new spaces.
Mitch, you raise a real interesting point that, quite frankly, I didn't appreciate till just now, which is that so much of what we're hearing about the metaverse, at least from the media, is that it is a place where people will be found, where people can discover companies, products, services. I didn't appreciate the fact that it's right now a place where you can bring together people and meet with your clients, meet with your peers for a mastermind. That, I think, has interesting ramifications because you can imagine you inviting your clients into the metaverse, into a spatial IO meeting place or some other environment. It builds a new relationship, right? It's you are ushering them into this new world. It's safe. It's just you and them in the meeting room. To your point, there's no one dressed like a unicorn kicking you. That's really interesting. And I think that should give some comfort to law firms, lawyers, law firms, and other corporations who want to make sure that what they do with technology reflects their brand, it looks professional, but it's also, staying up to date with what is cutting edge technology.
I'm so glad you picked up on that. And I need to emphasize that more. Yeah, the play right now is for us to initiate the interaction with a potential client, for example, in our virtual space. That's the way Web3 and the metaverse is working best for us right now. There's no randomness at all associated with our metaverse activity. It's focused, it's intentional. Give you an example. It rained. I've mentioned this a couple of times. So it's probably been a month and a half ago. It rained here in Southern California to the point where bumper to bumper traffic. We had 4 clients coming down from Los Angeles to Orange County to the firm, which is normally a 45-minute drive. And I think according to Waze, it was going to be like 3.5 to 4 hours. So everybody wanted to reschedule or jump on the phone, what have you. 2 of these potential clients were tech clients. And so I had my team reach out and say, listen, if you'd like, we can jump on a Zoom or a phone call, whatever works for you. But in December of 2021, we rolled out a new virtual conference room. If you'd like to meet Mitch there, we can do that. And that's what they chose to do. So I met 2 new potential tech clients, separate meetings in the virtual conference space. Within 60 seconds of meeting the first client, we're avatars in a room and it looks like me. Engage VR and Spatial both allow us to take our webcam or a photo from our phone or a desktop, and it takes your face and it integrates it using AI onto the avatar body. My avatar body looks like a lawyer in a suit. I don't think I have a tie, open shirt, but it's a professional type of initial interaction. So if you see me online, you know what I look like. You're going to know who I am when we meet down in a deposition or the courthouse. It's a very intimate experience. But anyway, 60 seconds into this intentional meeting that we set up, the potential client said, Mitch, stop talking. You're our guy. This is the firm we want to hire to represent our company in this high profile litigation matter. Now, before they came in, we took about 5 minutes, and that's all it took, was to take their logo in one of their promotional videos and click and add them to our conference room space. So when they show up in the conference room, they look over on one wall and there's their logo. Okay. They look on the other wall and here's a YouTube video that's showing their latest product rollout. It's a public video. They've got me standing there and we're sitting across a beautiful conference table with 2 laptop screens in front of us that I can walk them through retainer agreements or anything else that's applicable to the case. It was done with intent. It was done to personalize the experience. It was done in a free conference room that took us 5 to 10 minutes to set up. That's a beautiful thing. And the reason I appreciate it so much is I was that guy back in the day where we were spending thousands of dollars a month to keep our law library updated, to do our marketing and advertising. I think it was 15 to 20 grand a month for a small firm when it comes to employees and overhead and all this kind of stuff. And now I just created a much more professional, interesting, unique initial interaction with the client, doing what I just described in 10 minutes for in a free platform. And that just blows me away. And that's why I'm so excited about this stuff.
That is so cool. What better way to flatter a potential new client than to have their logo up in quote unquote your conference room and
Absolutely.
have a video showing, and the idea that you could, with the screens, with the virtual screens in front of you, the laptops opened, you could walk clients, like you said, through documents, or maybe you want to walk them through a video, or maybe you're an intellectual property attorney and you want to walk them through what they claim is the infringing trademark or some other piece of IP. You have a visual right in front of you, and I think that's just amazing, those opportunities. I recently wrote an article about content marketing in the metaverse for corporate law firms. And I think that it has to be visual, right? You can't just, in the metaverse, when you're meeting with a client, have a huge wall of text, 1,600 word client alert about a recent Supreme Court decision. That's not going to fly. But how can you make it creative? How can you make it immersive with video, with visuals? If you're a corporate attorney and you're covering a recent deal, can you use almost like live infographics to show the amount of people that are involved in the transaction or the stock price and have a graphic depiction of the stock price going up or down? There's just so many visual components that you can introduce in the metaverse when you're meeting with clients that it's going to, I think, revolutionize how we meet with people. Because even if you think Zoom is cool with sharing a screen and I can show you my web browser or my PowerPoint, well, how about me visually depicting ideas that I had for you without you having to read? They're just there, right? They're ideas that have come alive.
So first of all, please send me the link to your article, because I love your content and I want to read it and share it. Number two, I want everyone to think about the videos and images that we're talking about, the tangible assets, digital assets that you can use in the metaverse spaces. What they are, Wayne, is they're NFTs, they're non-fungible tokens. That's what they really are. They're packets of code. And so what you can do is, if you're a client who's being sued on a product liability case and it's your position, there's nothing wrong with your product, but people are getting hurt, there's something going on here, we can set up a conference where the CEO of the company, people that make decisions are in the virtual private space. Okay. I then am in California. I bring in 3 experts from the East Coast who appear through their avatars, and we're actually handing and holding this product in our hands. It's a 3D object that the experts can take, they can rotate, they can hand to the CEO, they can flip it over, they can show the CEO exactly where the bolt that's breaking over and over and over again, and why that bolt is breaking. And when it breaks, the item separates and causes injury. This real-time 3D interaction is easy to do using today's technology. These NFTs right now are somewhat transferable from Metaverse A into Metaverse B into Metaverse C. And that's what I want to see improved, is the integration or transferability of digital assets from Metaverse A, B, and C, because right now it can be a challenge. But as we watch this technology improve, and it is improving quickly over the next couple of years, there's going to be a seamless experience for the attorneys, for the clients, for the third-party experts, probably even for the courts, to jump into these rooms and have a more meaningful engagement and discussion over the issues that we need to do each and every day than ever before. And I'm glad you picked up on that, because that's what it comes down to. Is I really stress with lawyers, everything we're talking about is a couple of clicks and you set it up and you're good to go. You still need to focus on communication skills in the metaverse. There's a right and wrong way to use your avatar to communicate and make your point. And eventually, hopefully we'll get to that, because I think that's the key part, is getting onto a Zoom is one thing, effectively communicating, looking at a webcam, using your body language, using your hands, using displays while you're trying to make your point. The attorneys that have done that over the last 2 years during COVID, during arbitrations or mediations, of the attorneys that are getting good awards from me when I'm an arbitrator, because I can picture what they're talking about. I'm watching how, instead of just listening to what they're saying, I'm looking at a video or photograph of the accident scene displayed through Zoom. When you do that in 3D, it's 10 times more impactful. And so everyone needs to double down on, once you figure out how to use the Web3 spaces and easily integrate the ability to accept payment, subject to state bar rules, of course, using digital currency in these digital spaces, and make it easy and seamless for your client. Not only will they have a great customer or client experience, they're going to tell their neighbors, their families and friends that you're the lawyer they met in the metaverse. It's kind of a cool thing right now. And so you've got that branding and marketing aspect of it that I think is super important and often overlooked by a lot of firms that are afraid to, or just haven't taken the time to get involved in this stuff. But I also think you're positioning yourself down the line for what the future has in store. Right now, Wayne, what I'm excited about is real-time translations. So there's technology out there right now. It's going to take another couple of years. But if you and I speak different languages and we're in a virtual conference room, and I'm not talking about written captions, I'm talking about when I hear you speak, it's being interpreted in real time via AI, and I understand exactly what you're saying in real time without any delay, and vice versa. And so it's one of these things where when we set up our virtual spaces, I'm in virtual spaces with people from around the world. My son Garrett and I started a company a couple of months ago called Maneuver, and it's an agency that shows traditional companies how to transition or maneuver into the metaverse. And we had about 20 or 30 people on the bow of a digital yacht at night, beautiful graphics with a 100-foot floating screen over the water. And we did our presentation in that environment, which was unique. It was different. It was really, really cool. Everybody enjoyed it. And then with a couple of the decision makers, we were able to click a button and instantly transport them to our private conference room to close the deal. So it just allows for another level of engagement, another level of showing that you care, another level of using technology that, because most of our competitors aren't using this technology, they're also avoiding the opportunity to stand out from the herd.
That's just fascinating. If you're listening to this and this isn't getting your blood pumping, you might have to check your pulse, because it is so cool. And I've got two questions based on that example you just gave.
Sure.
Are you concerned at all that people who can't see each other's faces, can't see it live the way that humans see other humans through web cameras today, are you concerned at all that you actually lose some personal touch by having it behind communications behind avatars, even though if it's your real human voice?
That's a great question. So absolutely. Absolutely. I think, there's nothing better than you and I sitting at that ball game next to each other. And I still remember when I first met you at the conference, but then spending time with you at the ball game. There's nothing better than that. Okay. But when we can't meet in real life, when somebody, it's an inconvenience for them to meet with you in your office, you got clients from all over the world. This is the next best thing, because if you remember what I said is, it's my face on my avatar. Wayne, you're looking at me. It's so realistic that we've added a new chapter into a book that I'm writing about. It's called the Metaverse Handbook. And we're adding a new chapter that really takes into consideration human resource obligations, HR responsibilities at the state level, what employers and employees, can and can't do. All of these things apply in the internet, in the metaverse. And what we're seeing is we're seeing people kind of drop their guard, and their avatars are getting too close to each other. There's inappropriate touching, inappropriate language. And so people need to understand, because it's so intimate, people start to try to get away with things. And so it's just another opportunity for lawyers to kind of educate their clients in the HR departments as to what they can and can't do. So yes, that is a concern, but I think through proper communication techniques. For example, when you're an avatar in a space, use the room just like we would in a trial. Work the left and right side of the jury box, work the left and right side of your conference table. Move your avatar around, create anchor spots. So when you're making a positive point, probably you'll be standing in a certain position. I like to be near a jury box, near the witness box. In front of the jury in a trial, but maybe in your virtual conference room, you're on one side of the conference room. When you're talking about negative aspects, you might have your avatar over on the other side of the conference room, but you're using space to help with your communication efforts. You're using voice inflection to help make your point. You're doubling down on metaphors and storytelling to create that experience that everyone's watching because they feel like they're there, especially if you're using a headset, but they're also listening to the message that you're sharing. And I think when you pull all of this together, any downside to people not physically being in front of you in real life, you can adequately offset by using these additional communication approaches and techniques. And if your only other alternative is the phone, email, or Zoom, not even on the same level with what I'm talking about. This is real. This is new, and this is something that's got everybody exciting. But you had two questions. That was number one. What was the second?
To that exact point, what is the method? You alluded to this before, but when you had your meeting, when you and your son were pitching Maneuver to this group of people, you sent them a link that looked like a normal hyperlink, and they would click it, and it would guide them to the meeting room. Would they then have to either log in or pick an avatar? How does that work if they're not already in with an account on the service that you're using?
What we do is like Zoom. So what you're going to do is you let your community, the other person or community, whoever wants to attend the event, let them know that they want to register for a free account. It's just like Zoom, and they can register for a free account. Now, you send a link out, and they can click on the link. We usually have it password protected, and they can click and join us, like I said, through their phone, their tablet, their laptop, or their desktop. If they're within their Oculus, they can also click and download the Engage VR app within their Oculus. It's just like downloading an app on your phone. You want to do the same thing with Spatial. You want to do the same thing with Glue.work within your Oculus headset or other compatible headsets. And so what happens, though, is people that want to join using their headsets, they put on their Oculus, okay? And then they go to their Engage VR. And when they enter their Engage VR account, they it's like walking into the front entry doors of a huge conference facility. There's a big board, and they can click live events, hosted events. They can do a search for your event, but it shows on the board. So this might say, in fact, it did say Maneuver Yacht Presentation - join us, exclamation point. So they tap on that and they enter the password, and they're brought right to the front of the bow of the boat instantly to join us. And then once they join us, one of the reasons I like Engage and Spatial is that we can tap and control the environment of the meeting. We can click a button, and if you've got avatars that are walking around the boat, kind of exploring the dynamics, I can click a button and bring everybody over in front of us. I can click another button and mute everyone. I can click a button and have someone leave the event if they're being disruptive. You're in full control of the environment. And so for first-time users, they show up and they kind of look around, and then you give them, you small talk for a couple of minutes. And then I press a button, bring everybody together, or have them all seated and maybe muted. And then we start the presentation. So it's very similar to bringing somebody into a Zoom. There are multiple ways to do so depending on the devices that they're going to be using.
Are they just randomly assigned avatars?
When you set up an account in the platforms that I've mentioned, during the sign-up process, you're given the option to use the default avatar, or you can take a couple of minutes and you can create your own avatar. And what Garrett and I are suggesting, especially to professionals, is take some time and create your avatar, whether you're in your Oculus or you're on your laptop or desktop, which is certainly a lot easier to do, bigger screen than your phone. You select your hairstyle, the color of your eyes, your facial shape, the type of body that you want to reflect in the metaverse worlds. and you can customize it any way you want. What we recommend is people, do try to customize your avatar body to reflect as close as possible to how you look in real life. So if somebody meets you in a deposition or down at the courthouse, you're not going to feel misled. And I think by putting your face on the avatar body, which is an option when you're setting these things up, you don't have to do it, but I recommend that people do. It really does feel, Wayne, like you and I are just looking at each other in the same space. We can fist bump each other, we can high five each other, we can click a couple of buttons, and each of these platforms has a mirror type of image or a selfie stick image where we can actually you can click it and see what you look like. So you can see whether or not, your tie complements your shirt or your pants or the types of shoes that you're wearing. You can have as much fun with it as you want. What we're telling our clients to do is, look, if I'm meeting a lot of 22-year-old startup people that have an idea in Web3 and they want to get their legal questions answered, I'll go with one of my avatars where I'm not wearing a suit. I'm actually in jeans and a white button-down shirt with a loose blue jacket, little younger, hipper look, and I'll select that avatar when I'm meeting with those individuals. It's still my face on that avatar, but the bottom line is you can customize the experience any way you want. And just like what we've all been doing with Zoom, the more you use these platforms, the easier they get to use.
It's so very cool. It's just right. This conversation, I hope, is changing people's minds about the metaverse. Because if you're just looking at it, as we talked about earlier, from a Decentraland point of view, I'm going to walk around and see what buildings are up here. That's a very, very different experience than what we're talking about, which is an intimate way to meet with people, to build a relationship that already has started in some form or fashion. They've contacted you, your networking acquaintances. You already have something. They're a prospective client or referral source, and you could really use the metaverse to connect with them in a new and interesting way and brand yourself in the process as on the cutting edge of technology.
I would love to see lawyers start doing press releases and inviting the press into virtual presentations. There are rooms you can set up, Wayne, where it looks like a TED Talk, or it looks like an interview room, or it may look like a podcast room where you might do a podcast. There's a room or template in Engage VR that looks like a courtroom. And we can bring our clients in and have them sit in the witness stand or walk over to the jury box and see what the rest of the courtroom looks like from the perspective of being a juror. We can do cross-examination and direct. All of these options are there. But to your point, the next time somebody thinks that they want to have a press conference, or they want to share legal insight as to a breaking news story, or they want to somehow get in front of the community to talk about a community legal issue, think about doing that in a virtual space. And you'll have a very unique and memorable live experience for everyone. You can also record everything that we're talking about, download it when you're done, and repurpose it on your traditional Web 2.0 platforms, on your blog, at your website, in your email newsletter. You can create content that continues to add value over and over and over again, which is my favorite part about all the above, is doing something once and then repurposing the content over and over. And so, yeah, I think I love the fact that you're focusing in on, that's why we're together right now. You're focusing in on exactly the way I think lawyers need to be taking advantage of Web3 and the metaverse spaces in today's world. So thank you for that, Wayne. I'm glad that we're talking.
Yeah, no, you've blown my mind with some of the potential here. The idea that you could literally record a video in one of these environments like you would normally, talking to the web camera, and post it on YouTube, but you could do the same as your avatar and still provide knowledge and thought leadership, but people are going to see the avatar and be intrigued, because there are not avatars. If you're scrolling through LinkedIn, there aren't many people, if any, who are speaking as an avatar and providing thought leadership that they would normally outside the metaverse, just in front of their web camera in their home office. There's just so much opportunity here. I want to touch on two quick things before we start to wrap up. smart contracts, blockchain technology, tokens. Do you see, obviously, smart contracts? You can see the connection where lawyers can use smart contracts, but what about blockchain? What about cryptocurrency? How do you see those coming up in the legal industry, whether on the plaintiff side or in the larger corporate law firms?
So I see both of those technologies completely changing the legal industry moving forward. Blockchain, for people that aren't aware of what a blockchain is, it's an immutable ledger that facilitates the process of recording transactions and tracking assets. So in the legal profession, whether it's discovery or the way the courts are processing legal pleadings, the way we're exchanging discovery, jury instructions, any asset, any issue in a legal case can be placed on the blockchain and preserved. Okay, so there's no question as to what it is or what exactly happened. And when you incorporate smart contracts to do all the above, you're allowing code to facilitate, make more efficient and less expensive, in a faster way, handle all of the above. So Wayne, what I see happening is blockchain technology along with smart contracts are going to change how we practice law, how we keep track of important legal events, ownership interest, and also in the real estate world when it comes to escrow agreements and titles to property. Any type of digital asset can be tracked, can be recorded, can be protected on the blockchain. So as a lawyer, there's going to be a point in time where when a client wants to protect a certain type of asset that has a digital component to it, if you don't recommend that they use blockchain and smart contract technology to do so, down the road, it's going to be malpractice. And so I think it's really important, and we're talking down the road, okay? I don't want everybody to get worried about this, but maybe 10, 20 years down the road, this is something that's going to be the foundation to what we're doing. You're not even going to be thinking about blockchain or smart contracts. It's going to be the underlying foundation to everything we do. And so it's a good idea for people to kind of get up to speed on this technology right now, for two reasons. Number one, baby steps. The more you know, the better you'll come across to third parties, including clients. Number two, as you incorporate these technologies into your practice, into your client services, you'll get better results, it will cost less, and you'll have happier clients. So yeah, it's an exciting time. Whether or not people are keen on decentralized technologies in Web3, I get that. There are downsides to everything we're talking about: accountability, jurisdiction issues, who's really behind a decentralized autonomous organization. Do you really want to be a part of a DAO when you don't know all the players in that DAO? But I think from a lawyer's perspective, whether you're doing intellectual property, whether you're doing contract law, litigation law, I think there's never been a greater opportunity for law firms to expand their client services, to incorporate all these technologies, to build out their business, because this is there's a reason why every single Fortune 1000 company is looking at one or more elements of Web3. There's a reason why investment firms and some of the largest private and public corporations in the world, those that aren't even on the Fortune 500 or 1000, are building out Web3 technologies and spending billions of dollars to do so. And I think it's really smart that we pay attention to what they're doing, even if we don't like what they're doing. I'd rather be out paddleboarding with my family than all of us spending 6 hours in the metaverse together. I get the downside to all of this, but the reality is, from a business perspective, this is here. It's growing faster than anything I've ever experienced in 40 years of being in business. And I think it's foolish for anyone to bury their head in the sand and pretend like this doesn't have significance moving forward as a society. So it's an exciting time to be alive. It's a great time to be a lawyer. And it's been an awesome opportunity to chat with you about these trending topics on your podcast, Wayne.
Yeah, Mitch, I couldn't imagine a better way to end the podcast, I'm hoping you can give listeners one or two or maybe three sites or newsletters they can follow or subscribe to for Web 3.0 information, especially as it relates to lawyers. I'm thinking of one, and it might very well be your own newsletter, but please give people an idea of where they can learn more about the Metaverse and Web 3.0, especially as it relates to the legal industry.
Absolutely. So why don't we start off with the NFT Handbook? It's a great book recently written that really will give everyone the A to Z on NFTs. It's written by Matt Fortnow, who is a lawyer up in LA, and Harrison Terry, who's Mark Cuban's community manager. It's really good, everyone. Chapter 9 has a section about the legal aspects of NFTs. I recommend everyone read that book. It's that good. Number 2, my blog, mitchjackson.com. I try to share all of the exciting, relevant Web3 news that's coming down, especially as it might apply to business owners, lawyers, professionals, entrepreneurs. Not a whole lot of coding and tech stuff, but more practical application links and things like that. Over at mitchjackson.com, I have a LinkedIn newsletter that goes out once a week that's pretty popular. The first 4 to 5 issues of that newsletter dive very, very deep into some of the things that Wayne and I have already talked about. And stay connected with me on Twitter. Right now in a Web3 environment, Wayne, do you have a Discord, Wayne, by any chance?
I'm on Discord.
You're on Discord?
Yep.
Okay. I was going to say Web3 right now, where people are sharing information, where people are talking is on Twitter and Twitter Spaces, but also over on Discord. And so if you're not using Twitter right now, this might be a good opportunity just to kind of be present in a very relevant space. Finish building out your Twitter activities, participate in some of our Twitter Spaces, join us over in our Discord, and get familiar with these third-party applications, because that's where the conversation's taking place. That's where ideas are being exchanged. And I think that's also where the community is sharing information to protect each other. It's a tight community, and people are looking over each other's shoulders. They're looking out for each other. And I think if you kind of play around in those different sandboxes, 6 months from the day that you listen to this podcast episode, you'll be so much further ahead of everyone in your community on Web3 technology that I think you'll be sending Wayne and I an email just saying, thanks, guys. This was cool. This was a lot of fun. And, honestly, Wayne, that's just it. You got to get involved, right? Get involved, start learning, baby steps, and enjoy the ride. That's what it's all about.
I'll be logging on to Spatial and some of the other services you mentioned today to sign up, because I just can't wait to invite people into those environments to meet with them and experience the metaverse in a way that is totally professional, totally above board, but yet gives us a glimpse of the future. How can you not want to run to your keyboard right now and log in and sign up for those accounts? I just can't wait.
Let's do it together.
All right, Mitch, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me. We will obviously put all of your links to your social media accounts and your resources in our show notes. Again, thank you so much for your time and for helping us learn what Web 3.0 looks like and what it's going to mean to the legal industry.
Love it. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Make it a masterpiece.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode of Legally Contented. Thanks so much for tuning in. Check out the episode show notes for more information about our guests and for links to resources that we discussed during the episode. We'd appreciate your feedback and recommendations for future guests. Email us at hello@legallycontented.com, hello@legallycontented.com. We would appreciate if you told your colleagues about this podcast, if you subscribe to the podcast and urge them to subscribe as well. And while you're at it, maybe you could even rate and review the podcast on your favorite podcast player. Until next time, thanks so much for tuning in to Legally Contented.